Hello Legacy students, so today we're going to look at section 2, which is on solving systems of equations using substitution. So materials you're going to want is that little booklet we made in class, your notes, pen or a pencil, and a calculator. So this video is going to focus on how to solve systems of equations using the substitution method. So this is another option for us instead of the graphing method that we just looked at. So here's that little booklet we made in class. What you're going to want to do is on the front of it, you're going to want to title it the substitution method. So you're going to need to pause quite a few times during this video to write down stuff that's already on the booklet. So if you would open it up, and step 1 is pick one of the two equations and solve for one of the variables. So you're going to want to pause so you can write down the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, what we're going to do is actually work out an example throughout each step. So here is my example. I have the system 2x minus 3y equals negative 2 and 4x plus y equals 24. So on step 1, here is step 1. We need to pick one of those two equations and solve for one of the variables. So I always enjoy to find the equation that has a variable that is alone. That way it doesn't have a number there. It's a lot easier to solve for. So I notice in the second one here, I have a y without a number in front. So I'm going to solve for y in this equation. To do that, we're going to subtract 4x, getting y alone here. Cancel that out. We're going to get y equals negative 4x plus 24. That is exactly what I need for step 1. I just need to solve for a variable. Now, second step is to substitute what I got in step 1 into the other equation. The other equation I had was 2x minus 3y equals negative 2. And I got from step 1 y equals negative 4x plus 24. So in step 2, what we're going to do is wherever I see a y in this equation right here, I am going to put negative 4x plus 24. So I'm going to start writing. I got 2x minus 3, and I hit a y. So what I need to do with that y, instead of writing a y, I'm actually going to write what I know y is equal to. So I know y is equal to negative 4x plus 24. I am substituting negative 4x plus 24 for y. Now I'm going to finish out the rest of my equation. So I'm still going to have that negative 2 there. Alright. Step 3. What we need to do is solve for the remaining variable. So what you had before, you had this last step. On your last step here. Let me write it down. There we go. So we're going to solve for x. So let's distribute that negative 3 in. So we're going to have 2x, negative 3 times a negative 4x. We know that to be a positive 12x. Negative 3 times a positive 24 is a negative 72. Still equal to negative 2 there. So now we can combine some like terms. I have 2x and I have 12x, so 2x plus 12x, that is 14x. Still getting x alone, so let's add 72. Remember, when solving equations, you're always going to add or subtract before you multiply and divide. Get 70 on this side. Divide by 14, it looks like. So you get x equals 5. So I have found one part of my solution. I have found that my x value is 5. So what I'm going to do is take that x value that I just found, my x equals 5. And I'm going to plug it into one of the equations I had originally. So the two equations that we had originally was 2x minus 3y equals negative 2 and 4x plus y equals 24. So what I'm going to do is substitute into one of these two equations x equals 5. So wherever I see an x in one of these two equations, I'm going to put a 5. What I usually do is I choose the simpler math. So I'm actually going to use this top equation here. So I'm going to substitute wherever I see an x, I'm going to put a 5. So 2 times 5, because there's an x there, minus 3y equals negative 2. So that's step 4. All we need to do is substitute what we got. Now, step 5 is solve what I just created. So we just got this last time. There we go. So let's solve for y. So 2 times 5 gives me 10. Write the rest there. Solving for y, you're going to subtract 10. Negative 2 minus 10, it's going to give me a negative 12. Get y alone, so let's divide by negative 3. So I get y equals negative 12 divided by negative 3. That's a positive 4. So what's just happened is we have gotten both the x and y value of our solution. And just like when we did our graphing, your last two steps are going to check those solutions. So your solution was 5, 4. So the top equation, the one that we were given first, was 2x minus 3y equals negative 2. So here's my x, here's my y. Wherever I see an x, I'm going to plug in a 5, and wherever I see a 4, or a y, excuse me, I'm going to plug in a 4. So 2 times 5 minus 3 times 4 equals negative 2. 2 times 5 is 10. Negative 3 times 4 is a negative 12. So 10 minus 12, that is a negative 2. And I know negative 2 is equal to negative 2. So that checks out. That works perfectly. And the last step. We need to check in the bottom equation if the solution works. The bottom equation was 4x plus y equals 24. This is the second one we were given at the beginning. And our solution was 5, 4, remember? So this is my x again, that's my y again. So wherever I see an x, I'm going to put a 5. So 4 times 5 plus y, I know to be 4, equals 24. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 plus 4, 24. And 24 does equal 24, so it checks out. So that lets me know my answer to this system is 5, 4. Let's try these on. Let's try this one also. I first need to solve one of these two equations for a variable. I notice that I have a positive y here. I'm going to solve the top for y. The reason I didn't solve for the bottom is that negative there, I would have to divide everything by a negative 1. It's going to take a little bit more thinking, a little bit more steps. I want to make the less steps the better. So I need to solve for y. So I'm going to add 4x to both sides. And I'm going to get 4x plus 6. So now, since I got that, I'm going to, into the bottom equation, substitute 4x plus 6 wherever I see y. So I have negative 5x minus, I found y. So since I have y here, I need to substitute whatever y is equal to, which is 4x plus 6. Now, if it helps you, that's technically a negative 1 in the front of there. That way you can distribute negative 1. So negative 5x, negative 1 times a negative 4x, that's a negative 4x. Negative 1 times 6, that's a negative 6, equal to 21. Negative 5x minus 4x, that is negative 9x. Just combining some like terms. I need x alone now, so let's add 6. Divide by 9. I get x equals negative 3. So now what I need to do is take that negative 3 and pop it into one of my two equations up here for x. I'm going to do the top one just because it's easier math. So negative 4 times negative 3 plus y equals 6. Notice how I have an x here, so I put a negative 3 in the place of my x. So negative 4 times negative 3, that's a positive 12, plus y equals 6. Subtract 12 from both sides, and I get y equals 6 minus 12, negative 6. So I should have for an answer negative 3, negative 6. So in the corner here, I'm just going to kind of make a little area. This is going to be my check area right over here. So into the top equation I go. Negative 3 is for my x, plus a negative 6, because a negative 6 was my y. Negative 4 times negative 3, that's a positive 12. Minus 6 equals 6. 6 equals 6. That checks out perfectly. What about the bottom one? Negative 5 times negative 3 minus a negative 6 equals 21. Because there's a minus there, and I still have a minus with that 6. Negative 5 times negative 3, that gives me a positive 15. Two negatives there, I get a positive 6. 15 plus 6, that is 21. Checks out. I have found the answer to my system. You're going to want to write this down. I know the pencil's not in the corner, but you're going to want to write this example also down. On this one, just like last time, we're going to find one of those two equations to solve for a variable. I think the bottom one is the easiest to solve for, and I'm going to solve for y. Just because he's a positive y and he doesn't have a number with him. So let's add x to both sides. Get y alone. And I'm going to have x plus 3 on the right-hand side. Now, into the top equation, I'm going to plug in a y. I'm going to plug in x plus 3, wherever I see this y here. So I have negative 3x plus 3. Into the y, I'm going to have x plus 3, and it's going to be equal to 4. So negative 3x plus 3 times x, that's 3x. Doing some distributive property again. And then 3 times 3, that's 9. And that's going to be equal to 4. So then I look here, and I have negative 3x and a positive 3x. Negative 3 plus 3, well, that's just 0. So let's cancel those two out. And I'm going to be left with 9 equals 4. Now, I have a question. Does 9 ever equal 4? No, that doesn't make sense, right? This doesn't work. So what happens when this doesn't work? We get to write no solution. There is no solution to this problem. So if you ever get two numbers equal to one another that actually are not equal, so let's say 3 and equals 2, you can say no solution. That is always the case when you have two numbers that are not equal to one another. And the last example for this video, let's solve one of these equations for one of the variables. Now, if you notice, there's not really an easy one to solve for on this one. So really, you get to choose what you want to do. I'm going to do the top one because it's a little easier of math. And I'm going to solve for x, just because I want to solve for x on this one. I've solved for y on the other ones. So I have 3x plus 3y equals 12. So I'm going to solve for x, remember. So I'm going to subtract 3y from both sides. Like that. So I have negative 3y plus 12. I need x alone yet, so let's divide by 3. 12 divided by 3, we know that to be 4. So I have solved for x right there. So into the other equation, the one I didn't solve for, I'm going to plug in negative y plus 4 wherever I see an x. Since I used the top one, I'm going to plug into the bottom one then. So 9, and oh, I found an x. So let's pop this in there, negative y plus 4. I want to substitute negative y plus 4 for x. Plus 9y equals 36. So I just kind of finished off the rest of my problem there. Let's distribute this 9 in here. 9 times negative y, that gives me a negative 9y. 9 times 4 is 36. Plus 9y equals 36. Negative 9y plus the 9y, those cancel off, because that would just be 0, right? So I get 36 equals 36. Now, 36 does equal 36. We know that for a fact. So, instead of saying no solution for this one's actually when you can say infinitely many solutions. That's the end of the video. Thanks for watching. See you later, Sabers.